Welcome back. We were discussing solar system, natural phenomena, science for class 4. We have had a look at solar system, the sun, the moon, the stars, the constellations, the planets, etc. Now we shall look at rotation and revolution. The sun spins itself on an axis. Axis is an imaginary line that goes through the center of the earth from the north pole to the south pole. Sun spins itself around its axis. This is called rotation. Now, because the sun is in spherical shape and because it is slightly tilted, the tilting is 23 degrees. Because the sun is on spherical shape, it is slightly tilted and is slightly flattened at the poles. And it is slightly flattened at the poles. It gives rise to not only days and nights but seasons. Now, when the sunlight falls on the earth, only one half of the earth receives the sunlight, the other half is dark. The phase that receives the sunlight is called the day, the other half is called night. And because of this tilting at the north pole and south pole, in this example, the south pole will receive more light, the north pole will receive lesser light. So, south pole will have longer days, north pole will have longer nights. In certain times of the season, it is also possible that continuously you will have days in a particular pole. Let us look at rotation. So, the earth is spherical in shape, it has an axis from north pole to south pole, it is slightly tilted and it is slightly flattened at the poles. The sunlight falls on the earth, only one half receives the sunlight and that half has the day and the other half has the night. As the sun rotates, the other portion will also come to the sunlight area and become night, while this portion that is already having night will become night. There is an imaginary line that passes through the center of the earth, or that cuts the earth into two equal halves or hemispheres. An imaginary line that horizontally runs through the center of the earth to cut the earth into two spherical halves is called equator, and that is dividing the earth into hemispheres. Earth rotates on its own axis. Earth's axis is an imaginary line running through the center of the earth from the north pole to the south pole. Earth rotates on its own axis. Earth's axis is an imaginary line running through center of the earth from the north pole to the south pole. The axis is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees. The axis is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees. Rotation of the earth on its axis causes the day and night. Rotation of the earth on its axis causes day and night. We have seen one portion has the day while the other portion has the night. One half of the earth that faces the sunlight is having daytime in all the countries in this half. Countries on the other half that does not face the earth have darkness and so have nighttime. Countries on the other portion of the earth that does not face the sun have darkness, that is no sunlight, and so have nighttime. Spinning of the earth on its own axis is rotation. Spinning of the earth on its own axis is rotation. 24 hours to complete one rotation on its axis. The earth takes 24 hours to complete one rotation on its axis. The imaginary line dividing the earth horizontally into two equal halves, north and south hemisphere, is the equator. Equator is an imaginary line that creates a north and south hemisphere by dividing the earth into horizontally two equal halves. Look at this picture. This is the sun. The earth is revolving around the sun. The movement of the earth on its orbit around the sun is called revolution. Because of the revolution of the earth, we have seasons. Because of the rotation, we have day and night. Because of the revolution, we have seasons. Now, seasons means summer, winter, spring and autumn. Summer is hotter, winter is cooler. There are two reasons for this. One, the revolution is on an elliptical path, and so at sometimes the earth is closer to the sun and sometimes the earth is farther to the sun. Also, the earth's axis is tilted and flattened at the poles. Because it is tilted, the poles do not receive the same amount of sunlight, and so we will not have the same amount of heat. So one portion may have summer while the other portion of the earth, other hemisphere, will have the winter. In this example, the southern hemisphere will have summer because they are closer to the sun. The northern hemisphere is away from the sun, they will have a winter. In this example, the northern hemisphere is closer to the sun, will have summer. The southern hemisphere is away from the sun, will have winter. So this is how the summer and winter happens because of the revolution of the Earth around the Sun. Likewise, in this example, the sunlight is falling on this portion, so this is day and this is night. Instead of this being day and this being night, the polar area here is not getting the sunlight, and because it is not getting the sunlight, that will have cooler and longer nights. This area will have warmer and longer days. Likewise, here you will have warmer and longer days in the North Pole, and South will have cooler and longer nights. Here North Pole will have cooler and longer nights. Here South Pole will have cooler and longer nights. That is what we call as a polar night. Continuously it will be night for some time. Here continuously it will be day for some time. It will not have night at all. This is because the Earth is tilted on its axis. And the southern hemisphere will be hot here. Northern hemisphere will be hot here because of the revolution. So in September, northern hemisphere will have a summer, while in March, southern hemisphere will have a summer because of this position of the Earth in the revolution. So revolution is the movement of the Earth around the Sun on its orbit. Revolution is the movement of the Earth around the Sun on its orbit. Earth takes 365 days approximately, that is 1 year. Earth takes 365 days approximately to go around the Sun. Orbit is an elliptical path. Orbit is an elliptical path. Revolution of the Earth around the Sun causes seasons. Revolution of the Earth around the Sun causes seasons. Tilt of the axis causes the Sun's rays to fall more directly on either northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. Tilt of the axis causes the Sun's rays to fall more directly on either northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, depending on the position of the orbit. The half that receives more sunshine has summer, and the other half has winter. The hemisphere that receives more sunshine has summer, and the other hemisphere that receives less sunshine has winter. When it is winter in India, it is summer in Australia. When it is winter in India, it is summer in Australia. India has 4 seasons: summer, monsoon, autumn and winter. Monsoon is the rainy season in India. So we will recap with this portion. This chapter will come to an end. Revolution is the movement of Earth around the Sun on its orbit. Earth takes 365 days approximately, that is 1 year, to go around the Sun. Orbit is an elliptical path. Revolution of Earth around the Sun causes seasons. Tilt of the axis causes the Sun's rays to fall more directly on either northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. The hemisphere that receives more sunshine has summer, and the other hemisphere has the winter. When it is winter in India, Australia has summer. India has 4 seasons. Earth rotates on its own axis. Earth's axis is an imaginary line running through the center of the Earth from the North Pole to the South Pole. The axis is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees. Rotation of the Earth on its axis causes day and night. One half of the Earth faces the sunlight, and so it is a daytime in all countries in this half. Countries on the other half, which does not have sunlight, is dark and have nighttime. Spinning of the Earth on its own axis is a rotation. 24 hours is taken by the Earth to complete one rotation on its axis. The imaginary line dividing the Earth into north and south hemisphere, equal halves, is called equator. Thanks for watching. Please visit the community page for more updates on this subject.